Welcome to the Lighthouse Chapel. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth its sacrament, and service its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another and with the source of our being. Welcome to the Lighthouse Chapel. For those friends who are new here today, a special welcome. We invite all into this circle of community, into this sacred space. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing, and may we know the joy of wholeness. And may we know the joy of being together. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning, Deana Florian. Now, you know me. I gotta get the person over in the little corner and get a few little things on them, find out what they'd like us to know about them and share. And Deana was no exception. So, Deana told me some good stuff. Deana has been a church member for a long, long time.
Yes.
For a long time. Way, way back. Many moons ago. And we're happy to have you back. Deana is a mother of one daughter. I've seen her daughter. Cute, too. Cute daughter. And Deana is a businesswoman. She has two businesses, but she deals in holistics. And Deana is Michigan born, right here, born and bred in Michigan. She has certificates in a number of things, but two is divine healer and message bearer that she earned right here at this church. And also, as Deana was leaving, she mentioned something about also being in the ministry. Okay, so as you can see, that's all the good stuff she gave me. I know she left out some. We got to be a little modest, but this is what she gave me. So with that, I welcome Deana Florian. Come on down, sister.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Maybe I should step back. I know I can project quite a bit. So, hello. I'm grateful to be able to be up here and share a series of messages that have come to me about the importance of living life with the childlike spark engaged in our life. So, as we know, January is a common time for setting resolutions, and usually year to year, this isn't the best time to stick to those resolutions, so it can be a little discouraging. But this year, and today in particular, we've got some really great astrology that's going to support us throughout the year. But it starts kind of today. So this is going to help lend some support to the bigger changes that we want to see in our own world. Astrologically, we've kind of finally reached the summit of the mountain known as the Age of Aquarius. It's been taking its time, right? This very day, the sun overtakes Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius. So 0 degrees of any sign is pretty significant, representing critical mass for change. It's like the water building up behind a bridge before spilling past. That's why we're talking about like the crest of the mountain. It's been an uphill climb, but we're ready for some momentum now. So this combination is pretty powerful magic in our lives, which we could use, right? Sun and Pluto are respectively our identity and the ability to be transformed. And so that's talking about a little bit of alchemy for our own use. Whatever comes up is important right now. Aquarius as a sign can represent so many things, but one of the main things that I want to talk about is the identity of the self compared to the groups, the families, and the tribes that we either want to belong to or are forced to belong to. How many of those do we all have, right? So Aquarius is also representative of hope, progress, freedom, and renewal. So renewal, talking about transformation, it's like the phoenix, right? So it makes this very evolutionary energy for each of us and for the collective. Even the year 2024 reduces down to an 8 in numerology. And that lends us the strength and stamina to overcome our challenges with poise and compassion. Beautiful. For many of us, this is a new level of self-mastery. Here we can gain some momentum in whatever changes that we want to see implemented into life, and we start seeing the initial results, that feedback coming back. Aquarian energy isn't all sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately. Life continues to challenge us. Change is a constant, and we'll always have our ups and downs. However, Aquarius shows us that this life is truly what we make of it. We were set up with one of our messages today. The saying here that I have is, pain may be inevitable, but suffering is optional. So why not have a little fun while we're here, right? And make some lemonade. When we focus upon gratitude, we acknowledge our blessings, which can help redirect any of that stress or that heavy energy of expectations from external sources or internally generated, right? Over things that are beyond our control, and we start redirecting that towards what is working in our lives. What we do have, our resources are so abundant if we just take the time to look around. Suffering focuses on the pain long after the journey. Another message came up, right? It's almost like there's some kind of divine synchronicity at play today, right? Aquarius encourages detachment from norms, helping with that comfort zone. It reminds us that new perspectives can inspire us to rise again and again. We gain the wisdom of the phoenix as we balance any pain or heaviness with renewal and laughter. Today, we're looking at how this Aquarian energy is helping us to reconnect to the childlike spark. This spark can be viewed as the spark of life itself. Our connection to our inner spark breathes life into us. It shines through us. We begin life as children, unbiased and impressionable. We're curious, silly, imaginative, and wide-eyed, inspired life. This is perhaps the most untainted expression of divine light. The embers still glow within us throughout our life. In our purest form, our childlike spark is very authentic, unknowing of judgment. The driving urge is for comfort, for love, having our needs met, and beyond that, for some fun and joy in life. We can see that these are powerful motivating forces continuing as we, quote, grow up. Of course, our spark is quickly influenced by our early environment and the people that are around us. And this can help us to see the self in relationship to the groups that we're talking about, whether it be our jobs, our families, friend groups, etc. Here we develop the self in context of our urge for belonging and our need to be useful. There's a lot of ongoing growth here as we can kind of experiment with these groups and our belonging to them and our niche. And seeing ourselves in the mirror of others helps us in a lot of ways. Hopefully we can mature with some sense of empathy for that. And hopefully we will be able to utilize who we're becoming in some type of a niche within the groups that belong or that identify with the similar values that we hold, right? But often we find that finding our place within our groups requires us to either absorb some type of social expectation or to define our differences more powerfully. We each seem to want to specialize in some way in order to be seen as special, maybe even if that's just within ourselves, which is the hardest one to impress, the inner critic. So perhaps this might lead us to rebel against people, expectations, rules, or standards in our life, which we can see ongoing in our life, depending on how our journey develops. What do we need to bring forth from our depths, right? Those inner Pluto aspects are being called up to be looked at in the identity here. So this rebellion of sorts, even if it's not verbalized or behavior expressed, we can see what the deeper authentic self is really asking us to do. That inner child wants something from everything, right? So how many of us here feel like we're having way too much fun in life? Probably not too many of us, right? So the balancing force of play really helps us to find in our life more engagement and more inspiration, more creativity. So if you're on board with having more fun in your life, this Aquarian energy is really going to help to support that renewal of the inner spark. It's an opportunity to have more fun while doing this whole adulting business that we're being told we should care about. It's going to help us, hopefully, to get excited for the changes ahead, because with the right perspective, we're building more interesting things into our life, and hopefully we'll find ourselves more ready to find joy in those simple little things. Next, let's look at some strategies to create space for the inner child. And the first one I want to call balance and structure, which sounds pretty boring, right? I thought we were talking about fun, and here I am bringing up structure. But in all honesty, when we take care of our inner base level needs and have the capacity to what I'm calling reparent our inner child, it's a kind of a surprising or counterintuitive approach, but it's one of the most effective strategies to work with our inner child energy. Creating space is more like when our business is taken care of, we don't have to worry while we're out having fun. We don't have to stress or feel guilty about giving ourselves a little reward and a little self-care. Because when we're prepared, we're much better for everybody else in our life too. So it's not selfish. It might be selfist. Clearly, our body does require nutrition, hydration, movement, rest, shelter. We know these things, but how hard is it sometimes to choose the right thing? Practicing basic self-care honors our worth and really sets us up for feeling great at that base level. And self-sufficiency has so many other rewards. Reparenting here, I'm really talking about making healthy choices for ourselves by setting reasonable limits for ourselves. This may look like buying groceries before a lottery ticket, not staying up super late if we have an important meeting the next day, or not sabotaging our health or nutrition goals with terrible food choices, paying bills before having fun. Boring, right? But as we set these limits, our free time's guilt-free, and we have more peace of mind. The alternative is that those maybe irresponsible choices start to accumulate and creates unnecessary stress and instability, and the inner child cannot thrive there. Most of us already figured this out a long time ago, but are in some habits, right? So to continue on that note, some say there's about 8 main dimensions of well-being, and so we might think, oh, well, I've got this physical outlet, I've got this spiritual outlet, what else is there? But here they've called it, okay, physical, we covered that one. Emotional, okay, we know that one. Environmental, is it conducive to growth or is it full of toxicity? Financial, that one's ups and downs, and what we make of it also, right? Intellectual, are we bored in life? Are we seeking interesting things? Occupational, does it serve our value system, and is there respect there mutually? Social, how often do we connect with others and how fully? And our spiritual goals, looking for that inspiration and something to produce some sort of faith and meaning in our life. No one person can be expected to come into our life and fill this for us, right? The more self-sufficient we are, the less needy we are, and then we can actually be there to help and inspire others instead of always being that black hole, like give me validation, give me this and that, make my decisions, we can be like, oh, well, let me say what I've thought of in that regard, right? So some of these things may need more attention from us than others. So to counterbalance all that heaviness of trying to balance and juggle all of these expectations and make ourselves that perfect individual, knowing how to relax and restore our energies through self-care is so crucial. We all know it, again, but how often do we really get into those things? Most of you will have a few things that you're really familiar with, whether it's music as some type of conduit for expressing our emotions or soothing our emotions. We might really like the expression of art, whether it's through art of color or placement of objects. Everybody has something that creates that feeling of engaging with beauty. Walking in nature, baking, exercise, times with friends. All of these things can be seen as ways to move various forms of energy through our system, whether it's a physical energy, an emotional energy, or otherwise, or setting up time and space to release so that we are open and clear and ready to receive what wants to come into our life, whether it's messages or what. We're becoming a conduit for spirit to move through our body. We're fanning the flames and the spark within in order to help move that light through the body and to be able to cope with the heaviness. So, quite literally, that ends up enlightening us, dealing with the heaviness and helping us clarify and radiate. So, I've got a bunch of other stuff, and I know this is going to be a little bit too much information, so I'm going to try to just summarize, and we can all talk about these things later. So the third strategy here is more about implementation. Knowing is, quote, half the battle. So then we have to seek those creative outlets in some type of a way towards anything that's underexpressed, or we haven't given ourselves permission maybe to create art in a while, but we're an artist and we have all these ideas that are coming through. When we give ourselves a healthy outlet to express something or to develop a skill or hobby, then we're engaging in both ends of the spectrum, learning and teaching, possibly volunteering, possibly service work, however it comes through. It brings us into the power to revel in the community and the groups that we connect with. It gives us a sense of connection and family. And it might even help us to find more humor, or even when we're triggered, to find that creative spark of, well, how would I have done it differently? It's interesting to me that that person went that direction. What does that say about some of the things that I could learn or stretch my comfort zone of thought into considering other perspectives or approaches? The next strategy, number 4, is healthy feedback and support. I think a lot of us want to show our good side to the world. That's a pretty fair assumption. But there's no shame in wanting to seek some type of counsel, whether it's to a friend, spiritual advisor, or some of the heavy-duty stuff that we might need to see somebody that's more therapeutic in different ways. It can even take something less direct, like a massage, or just free writing in a journal. All of these ways are ways to release information, those heavier emotions also. And we could also talk about cleansing rituals here too, like smudging, or a nice cleansing shower to rinse away the day, or laughter, a nice comedy, great form of release. The 5th strategy I'm calling role play. Either our personal or social identity, we can kind of play around with our image and not take ourselves so static and so seriously, just by maybe combing our hair differently one day, or throwing it around a different direction or something, wearing a new color, a very expressive color. We can even counterbalance if we're feeling angry and misunderstood. Sometimes wearing blue can help us to flow and express. or calm our energy, or if we're feeling low, we might wear red to invigorate our energies. It can be fun to play around with styles or things like that, and test the waters and see how it might change or alter the way you feel. And again, this is a little bit of dancing around different topics and ways that we can use our own inner alchemy and kind of shift ourselves into playfulness and experimentation and curiosity with what comes up. So the next one can be a little complex. When we talk about who we are, it's kind of all discombobulated. Other people have told us things. We've identified things. Our identity, personality, and ego is all a manner of self-exploration if we look at it with a little less heaviness. So as we consider the roles that we play in our groups or for ourselves, who do we really think we are? Who do you think you are? How many times have we been asked that? You know, and even the bio, I don't know. What should I say? What's relevant? Who wants to hear what about me? What will people care about? And we take in our groups and we respond through the mirror of other people, right? And sometimes we can over-identify with either our accomplishments or our roles, the way we want to be seen versus, you know, what's meaningful and what is it safe to express? What will people look at me sideways for? How far can I go? How me can I be? And so when our different circumstances or masks or roles that we play change, like maybe retirement, empty nest, relationship changes, job shifts, whatever it might be, sometimes those can leave us feeling a little ungrounded, maybe a shift in our usefulness. Well, who am I now if I'm not that to that person, you know? And so all along, before even the shift, we can try practicing to put our energies back into the self very, very carefully, like an investment portfolio. And every time that we do have a shift, then we can see that as, well, it's an opportunity to reinvest those energies that were going that direction back into something else that's interesting or meaningful or into hope. Not investing on the closing energy, but looking forward to the future. So following the exploration of self and groups, we learn to honor our aloneness in this way, using that space appropriately for self-care, self-interest or development. As we develop our interests, we become more interesting. Neat, right? So those types of those types of redirections in our energy can be used for reflection, processing, but basically self-love, right? This is sometimes seen to be related to hermit or crone energy, where we go within the self or retreat into our cave or our homes and reflect what matters to me. It can be important to recognize here where we're sometimes socially avoidant, maybe, or hiding out the things that are more me from the group, needing that time to repair, from extending ourselves too far, perhaps, into our groups in ways that don't suit us. And sometimes it's worth a little bit of a check-in with yourself to see if you're feeling different, misunderstood, rejected, or even like an imposter, like people don't welcome us because they do. The sixth strategy, and I think the final one I'll go through, is talking about here shifting perspectives, searching and reaching for the higher vibration behind things. And here I went in the direction of judgment, but sometimes some people have too much judgment, other people have not enough judgment. So apply it as you will. Everyone has their own pearls of wisdom, and everybody has their own things to learn. So to kind of look at our go-to judgments or responses takes a lot of practice and patience and awareness. No matter how harsh the judgments are that are present in our life, and whether we see them as being our environment's external people or internally generated thoughts we hold about ourselves, they signify an opportunity for growth. And the thoughts that we hold end up having extreme power over us. The ideas that we practice about self or others can become very sticky in our body, in our minds, and in all types of ways. They influence our ability to be hopeful, creative, or they can trigger different emotions. Recognizing that those thoughts become things really matters. And as we're pushing those elements of light through our body, shining in all the ways that we can, that's what we're using to project into form. We are sculpting it into reality. So whatever we do notice can be shifted in a constructive direction with that awareness, as long as we're willing to question some of our assumptions or any feelings that arise. And some funny examples are saying we've all been driving on the road and had some crazy driver come and cut us off in traffic. One of the things that was told to me a long time ago was we can always look at that driver and say, it's not because they're rude. Maybe they just really had to use the bathroom. And, if somebody's riding our tailgate, this one, we could imagine ourselves slamming on the brakes, causing an accident. It'd be their ticket, right? We're righteous there. But what if they have a bunch of kids in the back seat? They're an irresponsible individual. The kids aren't even buckled. We could cause harm that we would never be able to emotionally recover from. And that doesn't make it lighter, but it makes it more, the ball is in our court. How we respond creates outcomes and results in our life. And it's not all about, I'll just be passive. It's about doing the better thing. We feel better when we do better. And we know better, then we can do better. I butchered that one. Sorry, Maya. But, so we can play around with some of these ideas too, even with clothes, hairstyles, young and old differences in values that we see out in the world. It's easy to judge, but instead of coming up with the stereotype and categorizing, dismissing these energies that arise for us, we can look at them with curiosity and find them interesting. The brain wants to take these things quite seriously and do that categorizing, but observing both the trends and the variables that exist can kind of help us to free ourselves from our accidental projections, which is incidentally a reflection of how we end up holding ourselves in higher esteem. So there's a lot of ways to practice detached humor without toxic positivity, and it's, again, mostly what we give our attention to. There's a reason why these lower vibrational habits come up: envy, jealousy, resentments. They want attention too, and looking at that with a little less shame and guilt and I shouldn't, they shouldn't, we shouldn't should on people. The perspective here supports the self-observations here and beliefs to shift our decision-making ability, and with those new decisions comes new choices, which leads to better results. And this whole practice is a return to love. Perfect. If only it was so simple, right? So, of course, each of these topics can be developed. The list is far from complete, but some takeaways are making time for joy and laughter is very cathartic. Balancing heaviness with self-care, interesting pursuits, and a forgiving heart can be very fulfilling. Everything is a result of choices and opportunity. By following the spark of our inspiration, we magnetize a lot more fun into every moment. And this one's a bit of a run-on, a complex idea, but it's the thought of building our life from the ground up, being grounded before we overreach, by exploring our personal needs and becoming more self-sufficient. We free up our energy for greater connections in a lot of ways. And this helps us to be more confident and authentic, freeing ourselves to be more real, which helps us to foster more heart-based connections, to communicate more fully, and it unleashes the mind from old cycles and repetitions. The childlike spark is the passionate, animating spirit within us that loves to play, craves to discover new things in life, and to imagine the impossible. And it's definitely a supported time right now to breathe fresh air into that spark and to see it bloom in our lives. So here is to that. I so appreciate all of you guys listening and following along with that.